Claudia Parsons has experienced some strange missing time episodes. Most she doesn't remember, but some she does throughout her life. Seems no rhyme or reason to her experiences, but they have had her seeking answers for several decades. Are they unique? They may be experiences that you may or may not recognize yourself. And Claudia is joining us now. Hi, Claudia.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Pleasure to have you. Claudia, talk about your missing time experiences. You've had quite a few. Most, as you mentioned off air, you don't remember, but some you do.
Well, I have to say the most profound one I had was when I lost time. It was around 1985, and I was at my parents' farm up in Northern California near Mount Shasta. And I was up there with a good friend of mine. She came up to visit me with her two kids, and I was there with my two kids. I was staying up at their farm for about 3 weeks while my daughter convalesced from having surgery. And I took a leave of absence, and my parents said, why don't you come up to the farm and you can house sit for us, because they were going to take a long trip and they had a couple of dogs to look after. So I was more than happy to be up there with them in nature and just enjoy taking care of my daughter and being with my son and getting a break from work. It was just nice to be in a very beautiful place for her healing. So what happened this one summer, 1985, as I said, my best friend came up with her two kids, and we were going to have a nice time up there with kids in the farm and doing some fishing and walking and things like that you do up there. And the day came, it came time for her to leave, and she had actually had to take a bus to Redding, California, and that was about a 4-hour bus trip from San Jose. Her car was not working that well, so she took this bus to Redding, and then I picked her up in Redding, and then when she had to go home, I was going to have to drive her back down to Redding. And we're in a pretty rural area. The highway going up to the farm and connecting the farm to Redding is Highway 299, which happens to go past Hat Creek Observatory, which is where SETI is located, Northern California SETI, SETI. And at the time, I didn't know anything about that, but since then, I've learned that is there. So we were just driving down the road, and it was 299 is a two-way road, and sometimes the trip can go really well. Other times it can take a long time because of hay trucks or logging trucks, and it's a two-way road. And I had an older car too, which didn't have a lot of get up and go. So if I got stuck behind a hay truck, I was stuck. I couldn't pass it. Mm-hmm. So we had to really make sure we had given ourselves plenty of time to get down the hill to get her bus. There was one bus a day called the Express, San Jose Express. So that's what she had a ticket for, and that's what we had to get her down for. And I want to say the express bus left around 2 in the afternoon. So we gave ourselves, as I said, a lot of time. We've just planned in a car maybe breaking down or getting stuck behind a truck. We had to get her there in time. And so we were driving along. It was a nice sunny day, late morning. And all of a sudden, we were just commenting on how great a time we were making. The car was cooperating, and the traffic was cooperating. And we were saying, well, we're going to get you down there in plenty of time for your bus, no problem. And then we blinked our eyes, and all of a sudden it was late afternoon.
Wow.
And yeah, the shadows were long. We saw, well, the day has completely changed. What is going on? We couldn't fathom how the light could have changed so drastically. I looked at the clock in our car, and it was saying it was 3 o'clock in the afternoon, or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I should say. So we were just completely flummoxed how we could have lost this time. And of course, at that time, I had never heard of anything having to do with lost time or alien abductions or anything along those lines. So we decided, we were driving, and we said, well, we've lost all this time. We're not going to make the bus. The bus is gone. Obviously, we're going to be way late for it. And we had to decide, do we go back up to the farm and start again the following day, or do we continue down into Redding and she'd get a motel for the night and then get the express out the following day? That made the most sense, because we couldn't tell how much, if I had actually continued in the driving for the time we were out, or but we figured out we actually were in the same part of the road as when we last remembered driving.
Right.
So we hadn't made any progress. So we were just, we kept saying, what happened? What happened? We just couldn't understand how we could have lost this time. In fact, I even said, well, let's ask someone else if they've experienced something like this too. So we
Hmm.
saw a road crew cleaning up for the day, and I pulled over and I went over to them and I said, can you tell me what time it is, please? And they said 4 o'clock or whatever. And I said, it was just 11 o'clock and now it's 4 o'clock. How did that happen? And they said, well, when you're having a good time flies.
Yeah. So you
They said,
lost
well,
five. You lost 5 hours.
I would say 5 hours. Yeah, I would have to say 5 hours, four or five. It was a good block of time. So we thought, well, we'll just continue down. We get down to the bus station. This is another thing that's kind of strange about the whole story. She knew she had missed her bus, so she was going to trade in her ticket and get a ticket for the following day. And she goes in there, and the ticket agent said, you would not believe this. That bus never left the station because it had some mechanical problem, and we just now fixed it. So
Wow.
just when we get there, the bus is ready to roll. And so we were congratulating ourselves on at least that was a good thing that happened, and she could still get her bus home.
Yeah. Um, do you believe you may have been abducted?
Um, no, at the time, I didn't think there was anything that could have happened like that. I didn't even know about abductions. We thought we went through some kind of time warp. We called it the time warp,
Hmm.
for lack of any other thing to call it, just the time. And my friend had some strange marks on the backs of her legs, but we kind of attributed that to mosquitoes. She had welts, kind of red
Hmm.
welts on the backs of her legs. So I think she was reacting more to the mosquitoes than anything that might have happened if we were abducted. Um,
Yeah.
I didn't know anything about abductions. I know at that point in time, the Betty and Barney Hill abduction had been um, out there in the news. And I think if I was aware of it, I probably would have dismissed it as some kind of publicity stunt.
Yeah.
I was very skeptical about, I mean, I didn't even know anything about abductions, but if I had known, I would have been skeptical because I didn't have any sense of time passing and I didn't have any memories until weeks later. I started having a very bad nightmare, and it was such a terrifying nightmare that I would have actually for years. And I don't know if that was related to the lost time episode or not.
Yeah. What did the nightmare involve, if you don't mind talking about it?
Yeah, I don't mind at all. This happened about, I'd say, 4 or 5 weeks after our lost time experience. I woke up with this terrible nightmare, and I was so upset that I started screaming, and I'd never screamed in my sleep before. I actually woke up the whole house. I was staying with my parents at the time then too. And the dream was, if I told you the dream, it doesn't sound scary, but in the dream, I was standing in some white cubicle and I was under arrest. I couldn't leave the cubicle. It was sterile. I was all by myself. I didn't see anyone. I was just in this containment space. And when I looked up, I could see a window at the top of the wall where it met the ceiling, just a small, thin window, and I could see blue sky. But in my dream, what made it so terrifying was I was about to be killed.
Hmm.
I was told I was about to be killed. And that's what terrified me. So I had that same dream over months and months and months, but it morphed a little every time. It finally morphed to where, and I wasn't crying, I wasn't screaming anymore. I was in the dream, and the dream would say, okay, now you're dying slowly, but when it's all done, you won't feel like you've died.
Right.
So part of the dream was I came out the other side and went, okay, that wasn't so bad. I'm still me.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know that doesn't make any sense, but that's
Well,
the dream I was having.
did you notice any markings or bruises on your body after woke up from these nightmares?
I don't recall anything like that. And I really don't recall. If
Yeah.
there were any markings, I might have just chalked it up to everyday things.
Yeah.
I don't
The
recall.
the missing time episode you spoke about. Did you seek counsel from anyone that may have known what happened to you? You know, someone that was kind of related in the paranormal field?
No, because I actually at the time I was really not thinking it was paranormal. As I
Right.
said, my friend and I said, maybe this is some kind of fluke of the universe,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
like a quantum time dimensional shift. And I've experienced a dimensional shift since that time. Um, in fact, I was up at the farm again. There were a lot of paranormal things going on up at that farm. And I had another experience. I won't go into a lot of detail because I know we're short on time, but I had an experience where something very heavy sat on my bed next to me, woke me up. I was terrified. And that was up at the farm. It was something so heavy that I actually leaned toward the depression on my bed
Wow.
that went down. And it was this heavy, heavy thing sitting next to me. And I was completely frozen, couldn't even move. I was so frightened. I was just paralyzed. When I could finally move, I took my two children who were sleeping. This was around 12 midnight, put them in the truck, drove to town to get a motel. And there were no motels available because there was some kind of rodeo going through town and all the rooms were taken. So I went to this restaurant across the river. It's no longer there, but across the river from my parents' farm, they used to have cabins for rent. So I went there in hopes I could rent a cabin or some just stay any place but my parents' farm. I couldn't go back there that night. And when I went into the restaurant, it was very strange because it looked as if people were there, but I couldn't see them. There were
Hmm.
cigarettes, lighted cigarettes on the table. At that time, you could smoke in restaurants, and the music was playing on the jukebox, and there were half-drunk glasses of alcohol on the bar, and
Yep.
it had all the feelings like people are here, should be here. I could see burning cigarettes,
Wow.
um, but there was no one around. So I was calling and calling, and I even went way back into the kitchen part of the restaurant and going through all the back rooms, calling for someone to, is anyone here? Is anyone here? Went outside, went around the whole complex calling, went into the office. There was no one around. So I don't even know what to make of that, but I wonder if that was some other kind of dimensional shift in time where I couldn't see people who might have
Right.
been there,
Yeah.
or they couldn't see me. They were there, and I mean, there was some very strange thing going on. I could not
Yeah.
fathom again.
Did you actually see the entity that sat on the bed?
No, but I woke up when it was coming down the hallway toward my room. I woke up absolutely terrified, and I couldn't imagine what I was so frightened of. And I told myself, well, I must have had a dream. But but I knew when I was awake there was something coming toward me.
Hmm.
I
The
couldn't see anything.
the farm itself was that the family farm?
Yeah. Hmm.
Okay. Did you ever think about maybe having that area analysed by, say, a professional to see whether there's a history of paranormal experiences there?
Well, people in that area have had a lot of claim there is a lot of activity. It's actually I know this sounds like a cliche, but the part of the land was an old abandoned cemetery. And I have a feeling I'm sort of a sensitive, I guess you could say. I feel like there was a battle or, you know, some thing that happened where people lost their lives on that property. I've had that feeling.
Hmm.
I've also had, when I'm up there, I've heard noises like people are in the house during the day. During the day when I was up there once when my daughter was a newborn, it sounded like the house was filled with people, but nobody was in there. It was just me and my daughter.
Right. Right. Because
Like,
it kind of reminds me, you know, a lot of farms like the Skinwalker Ranch and the Stardust Ranch in Arizona that are basically haunted by all things paranormal, including aliens.
I think that's a possibility for this farm. I always see UFOs up there. There's a lot of UFOs. People who live up there say that's Mount Shasta might be some kind of um, reason for this. Seeing a lot of UFOs. I've seen very clear ones. And I'm going to have to take my phone with me more often and have it out with me because I see things and I don't have my camera with me to record it. But
Right.
when I go up there, I'm going to have to start doing that. But I think there's a whole lot of things going on. It could be like Skinwalker Ranch with different paranormal entities.
Hmm.
I know my parents, when they first bought the place, had never been lived on as far as they knew before. They were the first people to live on this property. It's on a river. It's a really beautiful location. They heard what they thought was Bigfoot. They were joking. They said Bigfoot walks around here at the camp at night because they could feel the ground shaking from a 2-footed being.
Yeah. Wow.
It was kind of a joke that Bigfoot's around. And in fact, my father used to keep his Tanqueray gin in a canvas bag tied up in a tree. And something got up in that tree, untied the canvas bag, and took it away. And that was a heavy bag. It had more than Tanqueray gin, had other things in there too, but it
Yeah.
disappeared. So they blame that on Bigfoot too.
Okay. Going back to the missing time episode you described at the start, and the kids aside, have you kept in touch with your friend, and has she reported anything strange happening to her as well since then?
Yeah, she said, well, this sounds very odd. I don't know what to make of it. She said that her car um, she parked her car in the same place every night after she got home from work. The next morning, the car was turned around facing the wrong way.
Wow.
And there was no one who would have done that. And the car was in a small carport kind of thing, and there really wasn't a lot of room for people to get in there and bodily turn a car
Yeah.
around.
Yeah. You had an experience when you were just 21 in Balboa, California. Did you want to talk about that?
Sure. I at that time, my parents were living in an old 2-story Spanish house, and I was in a room I was like fresh air at night when I sleep, but I could never get the window open. It was painted frozen shut. And even during the daytime, I'd go around to the outside of the window trying to see how I could jiggle it loose. I finally gave up on it because it was irreparable. I couldn't fix it. So it was in the summertime, and I woke up found myself sitting up on my bed, kneeling on my bed. And I was facing the window, which was now open. And as I was looking out the window, I saw something behind me. I turned around, and on the wall opposite the window, the wall of my bedroom, I saw a very strange blue light moving very slowly down the wall, very, very slowly. I want to say light, but it wasn't a light. It just had light coming from inside of it out. It was glowing,
Mm-hmm.
effervescent, glowing blue, beautiful color. It also had a texture and substance to it. And I would always liken it to liquid mercury because it was slowly going down the wall, and it was actually moving over things. Like I had a cuckoo clock and was going over the cuckoo clock, and you could see the
Right.
shape of the clock under this material that was going down the wall, this light. It went down the wall, across the floor, up the wall, and went out the window. And then my room was dark again.
Was it like an orb, or was it being shone from outside to inside the room?
I felt like it was inside the room because it went down the wall, across the floor, and then went up the wall next to me. So it was inside the room. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
And went down
Yeah.
one wall, across the floor, up. So it couldn't, if it was outside, I don't know how it could have shown on the wall
Yeah.
inside the room like it did.
Yeah.
From the window, it could do that, but not
Was it
where I was.
was it ever threatening at any stage?
No, I was actually really delighted to see it. I was very pleased. I didn't feel afraid at all. I
Yeah.
felt kind of happy about it. I don't know why, but I wasn't concerned.
Yeah. Did you think did you ever feel it had an intelligence about it?
Yeah, it did feel intelligent. I felt like I meant to see this, and I don't know why, but it just seemed like this is something I need to see. And I was very happy I got to see it. I don't know if that makes sense, but it
No. No. No.
wasn't
No. It
scary.
does. It does. So when did these experiences you know, going back and remembering, when do you think they all started?
Well, now I'm thinking back and reading the more things I read, I'm beginning to realize they might have started when I was a child because everyone used to laugh at me because as a little girl, I'd go to sleep in my bed as a child will, and they'd find me sleeping in different parts of the house. So at the time, they thought I was walking in my sleep all the time. Maybe I was, but I'm starting to think maybe there was more to it than just walking in my sleep.
Yeah. Have other family members experienced them?
No, no one has ever mentioned anything like that. The only time was with my mother and walking in the fields, and the cows
Yeah,
ended up at the opposite end. I
yeah,
told you about that.
talk about that, because that really is interesting.
Yeah, so my mother and I were walking again up at the farm where all things seem to happen. And we were, there was a big herd of cattle that always started out in the pasture, one end of the pasture, and they would graze slowly toward the opposite end of the pasture so that by evening they were at the area where the barns were and being housed for the night kind of thing. Or if they were housed, I don't know. But it took them the whole day to get from the one end of the pasture to the other end of the pasture. So my mother we were walking along the road that goes past these cattle in the pastures, and our walk would have taken about a half hour from that point at the end of their driveway to the end of the road. It was about a half hour walk one way. And as we turned around to go backtrack to go back to the house, we noticed the cattle were suddenly had shifted to the extreme far end of the field where they would typically have been at the end of the day. In a very short time, in half an hour, they made that much progress. And we thought, well, maybe they stampeded and we didn't hear them, but we would have heard them because we would have heard the thundering and the bellowing. If they were running from some animal, like a mountain lion or something, they would have been very vocal, and they could be very vocal. I've heard them bellowing and mooing when something was going on, but they weren't. They were just grazing, just like they were when we saw them at the far end.
Yeah.
So again, we just were so perplexed. We couldn't rationalize how that happened, how they could have all ended up at that far end of the field in a half an hour's time. There was no way they could have.
So that wasn't so much missing time. It was more like a shift in time.
Yeah, I would say so.
Wow.
Mhm.
What what did your mother think about it?
Well, I don't know if she had any opinion at all. She just kept saying, "How could that happen?" We kept saying, "How can that happen? I
Hmm.
mean, how do you explain it?" And then we just gave up because we couldn't think of any way that could happen. When you can't come up with a rational answer, you just think, well, I don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
Can't understand.
Claudia, have you experienced most of these on the farm itself? I mean, we talked about the trip to Reading, but have most of them taken place on the farm?
Yeah, yes. That's the kind of hotbed of activity, you have to say,
Yeah.
except for the one in Balboa when I saw the light, the blue light.
Okay. Have you ever considered, you know, sitting down with someone, say, you know, in California, like Barbara Lamb, and maybe undergoing some regression therapy?
I have thought about that, but I'm a little concerned about what I might recall,
Hmm.
and it might be frightening.
So
I don't know.
you you'd rather not know, or you're frightened of actually you know something's there and you're kind of not really prepared to know what it is?
I think that's it. I know
Yeah.
something happened to me, and I don't know what, and I don't know if I want to know. I mean,
Okay.
I'm curious, but if I hear something, remember something I wasn't meant to remember, I feel like maybe they did me a favor by removing any recollection I could have. Maybe that was the thing to protect me from whatever I might have experienced. If in fact I was abducted, which I still feel like I don't know I don't know if I was abducted. I really don't know. I lost time, but who knows what happened.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
maybe there was a reason why I'm not supposed to remember
Hmm.
being wherever I was, if I was.
Yeah. Do you feel that at any time in your life that you were taken by ETs?
I don't know. I just don't know.
Yeah.
I've had so many paranormal experiences. I think it's quite possible I was. I wouldn't know why they would take me. I mean, I don't know why me, and if they did take me, have they taken me multiple times? Should I be concerned? One thing I never told, I haven't mentioned, I should mention to you, my daughter, who, as she was around 6 or 7 at the time, she said she saw an ET. And I never talked about this kind of thing with her because, of course, she was a little child. I'm not going to concern her by telling her any of my experiences because I don't want to concern her. She was a little girl, but she was really frightened. And she said she described a gray, looking in her bedroom window.
Hmm.
And she
Okay.
even described, I had her draw a picture of it for me. And she drew a gray, and she's never seen a gray. I never had literature around about grays or anything like that. But she what she described was your classic gray with a green skin, big
Hmm.
black eyes.
Yep.
She drew a hand with 3 fingers. I don't know if they have 5 fingers or 3 fingers, but anyway, that's what she said she saw. And she was very, very frightened about having seen this. I have
Yep.
never seen I've never seen anything like that, and I've seen UFOs, but I've never seen a spaceship. I know other people who have had abduction experiences have seen things like a spaceship or strange lights um, or beings before they lost time. I didn't have that experience.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm not trying to analyze what's been going on. I'll leave that to the experts like, Barbara Lamb or Kathleen
Hmm.
Martin. If you ever considered, sitting down with either one of those two ladies and
Yeah,
going through some
I,
regression,
I
but
would definitely think about doing that. I would.
and they'd be pretty happy to hear from you too, because
Hmm.
they certainly have spent a long part of their lives helping people, you know, get answers.
Uh-huh.
Um, but from my observation, I definitely think that farm is almost central to a lot of what's been going on. And I mean, is it the
Hmm.
farm still in the family?
Yeah. Hmm. Yeah,
Okay.
it is.
Yeah.
It is. And I still have problems up there. I say problems because I don't like the paranormal. I don't like when things happen to me. But when I go up there and I'm by myself, if I'm by myself up there, things are happening. Um, and doors opened, heavy garage door opened up by itself when there was no wind, there was no one around. And, I thought, okay, what's this? Okay, I don't like this too much.
Yeah.
you know, I
Yeah.
don't want to be around anything like that anymore
No.
necessarily. So it's too bad because I love the farm, but
I don't blame it. I mean, I grew up on a farm, and it's a great life. But
mhm.
when things out of you know out of the norm start to occur, it can shake you up a bit. But I really appreciate your courage for coming on and speaking to us
Oh,
about your
thank you.
experiences, Claudia. It's very much
Sure.
appreciated.
Well, thank you for having me.
Claudia Parsons joining us today, talking about her experiences, including missing time.